we had a good FY19 results, but we wanted to kind of moderate some expectations for FY20. And the context was after FY19 half-year results, the expectations went through the roof. We saw May, June quite weak last year, not be the only one. But we thought it's probably elections, financial year starts going to come back again. And we saw July, August not improving either. So that worried us. So by the time when we came to the market with the full year results, we had to kind of, thank you, we had to moderate the expectations on FY20. And obviously, as you know, when you moderate expectation, doesn't matter what the results was, everybody went to this straight outlook statement and we just got, I would say oversold, but that's my opinion, of course, right? There are three things I mentioned at that time. We saw a market slowing down. We saw a Queensland post-collection levy coming in. I'll explain to you what that means and how that affected. And the third thing I mentioned was commodity. It's interesting, commodity took its own sort of shape in itself. Now, we've been facing commodity headwinds for almost 2.5 years now. We never mentioned that a year before, although everybody knew that was a headwind, because we still grew by 10-11% top line, including the headwinds from commodities. Coming into FY20, we had multiple headwinds. We had the Queensland post-collection market was softer on our side, and then, so we mentioned that. Now, there was an assumption made, and maybe we could have done a better job at presenting at that time, and Nathan and I talked about that, people assume that in commodity, if I pick up $100 worth of OCC, the cardboard, the big thick cardboard which gets sold in international market, say from your building, then somehow all $100 of that goes to the bottom line. That was never the case, never is the case, has never been the case. So if you select OCC, there's about 80% of that or 70% of that goes as a rebate back to the customers. So this has been the case for 50 years, hasn't changed since. So there was a misconception that somehow the EBITDA loss was much higher than it was. It wasn't the case. Queensland levy is an interesting one. So Queensland used to have a levy for a long time, levy for transfer of waste to landfill. You had an election and Campbell Newman came in and he took it to zero, which is the retrograde aspect, never happened in the world. And then the issue was on 30th of June, if you were disposing a ton of waste, it was costing you $30 per ton. On 1st of July, it's going to cost you $120 per ton. So there was a pull forward of all the things which people were thinking of taking it to landfill. So we saw July, August volume in a landfill significantly down. On top of that, there was an interstate arbitrage, which some of you might know, which we were expecting to down anyway. So that was in the budget, but the local volume drop was quite significant for us, and that kind of worried us. So we saw that. And then the third piece was general market downtown. Now, the way market took that was, well, Cleanaway is a defensive stock, so market downturn should not affect. Now, that is quite an interesting argument. It's a defensive stock because 85% of the contract customers is contracted. But if the market slows down, you still have a slowdown. It just that means is that we then have to pull out cost to still get our operating leverage. So if we get 2-3% top line, we normally deliver 5-6% EBITDA, 7-8% EBIT, 10% NPAT. You look at our history, for 5 years, we've consistently delivered that half and half every half. But when the market slows down, your top line become 1%, hypothetically. Your operating leverage now becomes only 3%. So it falls down. So at that time, you have a lever to pull out cost. Now, when I said that was the challenges, I never said that I'm not going to do anything about it. Of course, you put a challenge out in the marketplace and say, okay, well, now it's action time for us. So by the time we came to the market, we had already taken cost out. So we knew we were covered on operating leverage. But if I'm telling the market the challenges I'm facing, I can't tell one and not tell the other. So that got confused. So commodity was that way. Queensland. Then the other thing we saw, July, August was slow. We saw a bit of recovery in November, December, in general volumes come through. Now, I'm not see what the second half brings, but we have taken into our guidance a market offish a little bit. Queensland we've taken into guidance, and commodity we have taken the action. So what we did on commodity, for large customers, we have now hedged the rebate with the index. So if I pay you 100, hypothetically, if I sell $100 with OCC, I'll give you 80. If 100 becomes 40, I'm going to give you proportionally down. So those contracts has now been changed for national accounts. The other thing which was in this sector for a long, long time was small and medium enterprises, where our salespeople will go and say, "Man, if I have your contract for next 2 years I will write you a check $200 every month for OCC. Don't ask me, that's how it works. Your coffee shop doesn't care what the index is, but I'll write you a check." But we made a decision after commodity went down, we are cutting rebate to zero. Now, that was a very hard action for us to make. You think about a company with 250 salespeople, telling them you have to go to every customer and saying there's no check coming next month. So you run two risks. One, you demotivate your salespeople. Two, you upset customers, increase your churn. But we had no choice. Normally, we would say to salespeople, sales teams, good sales people, say, "Look, listen, try to get it done by next month." This time we said, 1st of October, it's cutting down, you got to get it done, otherwise I'm personally writing a letter to the customer. And we make big song and dance in the market with the hope that the competitors follow. But we were ready for a churn. Churn will happen, but we're not writing check anymore. The days are over. Nathan will remember we did the same thing with hydrocarbons 4 years ago. So that changed the industry structure, and we took an action, and competitors followed, which is a big relief for us. That came out in the results, hence gave us the ability to give guidance for full year. So that's where we are. So we kind of went through a bit of challenge. I won't bore you with the numbers, but Nathan will know, and some of you who are deep into our numbers will know, if we deliver our guidance for full year, we are actually back onto the initial guidance of FY20. The original guidance for FY20 was 490. If we deliver 475, 480, which is the midpoint of the guidance, hypothetically, we did 235 EBITDA in first half. To deliver 480, I've got to deliver 245, which is half of 490. So for us, it's a big deal that there was an original guidance. We had to bring it down because of the challenges, but we were really keen to get back to what we promised in the first place, again, to make sure we don't miss out. So we had a challenge, we took it on, took pretty aggressive action, and we are where we are now.